Everyone, once again. Welcome to the webinar on productivity improvement in GTAW for semi-automatic, automatic, and SWOT. Uh, Very happy to say that we are going to start on time and hopefully we'll finish on time. Just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Nimish Chenoy. I'm the marketing director for Sigma Weld. The company's name is Electronic Devices Worldwide Private Limited. We are into manufacturing of induction heaters, induction sealers, welding automation, and welding inverters. And we have exports to about 90 countries. And we are proudly making in India since 1974. My area of interest remains welding technology, artificial intelligence, productivity enhancement, and improvement in. I see a lot of hands raised. Am I audible? Could somebody just confirm whether this is audible enough? All right, then I'll continue. Thank you very much for the feedback. Okay. So my area of interest does remain artificial intelligence, welding technology, productivity enhancement, and basically application development. How the technology can be applied to give you a solution. That's where my area of expertise or interest remains. I am a part of IIW Bombay branch, been on the committee and ICM member. I'm also a part of the AWPM, Association of Welding Product Manufacturers. I'm also a part of the CII Core Committee on Welding. And I'm happy to be here right now and this opportunity given by IIW to do a session on improving welding speeds in TIG. So let's get straight into it. First of all, thanks a lot for each and every one of you to spend so much time. Time today is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. And as all of us are here, why don't we make the most of it by participating in some polls and question and answers. All question and answers I request you to post on the Q&A section. So on your phone or your mobile, you should be able to see a Q&A symbol. Please post your questions there. And there will be a lot of polls as we go along. I'm sending the first poll right now. I would like to know if you all can see it and quickly reply to it. The poll is about what material do you weld? Can you, yes, thank you very much. If you could quickly fill this in. And what thickness of materials do you typically use? This will help us focus more on the particular topic that everybody is using. And I typically close off the polls at about 80% to 85% participation. We've got about 301 people right now. And I've got 45% votes in. I request others to please participate and vote soon. It will help us move quickly ahead. This also will get you used to a little more of interactive webinars. You know, it's not only a one-way communication, it has to be a two-way. This is one way to be interacting with you time and again. Right, we got 60% votes in. If I can get little more participation, it will be really nice. A little more quicker, sir, and I'll next 10-15 seconds and I'll close this poll so we don't waste too much time there. Thank you very much. We've registered in about 68% votes. A little more would have helped. There you go. Thanks a lot. I close the first poll here and I'm sharing the results with all of you. I hope you can see this. So the audience today has a fair mix of use of all materials, largely by carbon steel, mild steel, followed by stainless steel, low alloy carbon steel, titanium, Inconel, exotic materials, and aluminum. And typical weld thickness is largely between 5 to 15 millimeters, then followed by up to 5 millimeters, and then heavy fabricators are there from 15 to 50 and 50 and above, about 34%. Thanks a lot. And so we got used to this polls and we know where they are, how to approach them. So moving on, Um, we are all here to understand how to increase productivity in GTAW or TIG. The program today for the next hour, we'll take you through how to move from manual to semi-automatic, how to increase speed in your manual welder itself. And then if you were considering automation, what are the reasons you would want to automate? And based on that, the challenges you would face in automation to approach, basic tools that are available for automation, and then putting those tools together, how can we have some simple automations, complex automations, robotics, and we'll also touch upon cladding solutions. If this also doesn't meet your need for speed, then we do have a process which will take about 100 times faster than the existing TIG methods. We will look at it at the end. And after each section, we'll have a small pause and look at Q&A. If you had any questions that we could answer, we will take them up as well. I have received some questions early on, and I will take those questions as we go along. Okay, let's quickly see how many of us, one more poll coming along for you. How many of us are using what kind of welding on the shop floor today? Right? So do you largely have welders doing your welding? You have partly semi-automated, that means you have some fixed rotators or column booms in place where your jobs rotate and the welder manually welds. You have fully automated special purpose machines, or do you use robotic solutions? So we'll have a quick go through and try and understand the participants today, what they are used to using. I see most people have now got the hang of the polls. I'm seeing much quicker responses. We have already got 73% in. I would really appreciate the balance to also contribute. We would love to see more than 80% participation. Thank you very much. We've got about 75. Can I have quickly couple more so that I reach 75% and I will then call it. Thank you. We'll end the poll here and I'll share the results with all of you. So I hope you can see this. I think a few people can't see the poll results, but I hope most of you can see this. 73% of the people participating today have got welders doing the welding on the shop floor. 55% do have some kind of semi-automated welding. That means their jobs are rotating, but the welder's still welding. There are 20% of the people who are using fully automated special purpose machines, and about 18% who are using the robotic solutions. Good to have a great mix of audience. If I can get back to the slide now. All right. So we have a good mix of people all across, but largely manual welders. And moving ahead, we do know that availability of manpower is going to be a big question, especially with the migration of the laborers going back to their hometowns, and the return is not yet fixed, whether it will take 3 months, 6 months, or how long. So GTAW, or TIG as we all love to call it, has its advantages known to all. It's one of the best welding processes. It's cleanest, has very good looking beads, no spatters. It can do all position welding, and it's possible to automate. At the same time, there are certain things that are always a restriction. That is, it's a slightly slower process, has poor arc stiffness, lower depth of penetration, higher HZ, heat affected zone. Skill level of the welder, we needed little more. And one of the larger parts is stub end losses. So, the material you are using, if it's a fixed length, cut length part, the stub end of about 4 inches is lost. Thereby, the process tends to be termed as expensive. Can we make it more cost effective and faster? Let's see. So the first tool that we can look at is, at the moment, what happens when you are welding on the shop floor? What is the challenges that you face, right? The filler metal is manually fed, so the operator is feeding the material by his hand, as you can see here. You would use different sizes of filler material for root, filling, capping passes. That means that you would have to store multiple kinds of filler rods with you, 1.6, 2.4, 3.2, depending on the pass. You would have frequent start stops at the end of each filler wire. When the welder finishes the wire, he'll have to stop, pick up another one. Once that cut length is over, again he has to stop, which leads to a lot of post-process grinding as there are overlaps. Each time you stop and start, that overlap part will have a little high point. You would have to grind it off. And chances of lack of fusion, lack of penetration at overlaps are highest because whether the upslope, downslope was matched properly, whether the enough fusion had happened at that time. Again, stub end losses, very critical. Your typical cut lengths are 1 meter. If you look at last 4 inches that the operator cannot reach closer enough, he has to throw them away, which means about 100 millimeters for every meter. That's close to 10% of your raw material purchased, consumable purchase is gone in scrap. Also, this needs a helper. Some welders do require helpers to help them with the filler wires. Some require them to change currents and things like that. Can we somehow help this in increasing the speed? So if you look at one of the things that you have are cold wire feeders, right? What are cold wire feeders? They are tools that help you feed the wire continuously like you do in a MIG welding application. However, here the same filler wire that you were welding with the cut lengths are now available in a spool. You would feed the wire through the liner on top of the torch or through a manually held pen. It increases the speed of welding. It reduces your stub end losses. Now you, at the end of the spool, you may have about 8 meters of your wires, which is the length of the liner, which would be nothing more than a couple of grams for 15 kgs of spool that could have gone to waste. Whereas in your regular cut lengths, every 10% is going to a waste. It can simulate pulsing. So this tool can do everything that your welder has a habit of doing. The welders have a habit of feeding the wire in and out of the pool as they are used to. The more skilled welders, the equipment can simulate pulsing for you. It can start the wire at a speed, pause for a time, again start, pause. It can be done. The welder feeds in the wire only once the peak current is reached. So, once you finish your upslope and you have had a smooth start and you reach the peak current, the pool is ready. At that time, you start feeding the wire into the pool. Same thing can happen here. You can synchronize your upslope time with the wire on delay, and the wire will be start feeding only once the upslope is reached. Then you have, once the welding is going to finish and you want to stop welding, the welder smoothly picks up his hand during the downslope and he doesn't feed the filler wire. Same with this tool, when you are about to go into downslope and you press your button, the wire will retract itself by a particular distance, thereby moving away from the molten pool while it solidifies so that there is no breakage or stuck, the wire doesn't get stuck into the molten pool, right? Now, sorry, last 2 points we have is that of course, because the welder now has less amount of start stop, because once he starts welding, he can continue till the time he feels comfortable. The wire is not finishing. He doesn't have to stop every 2 minutes to pick up the second wire. The wire is coming continuously. It allows him to weld faster. This reduces his fatigue or start stop, allows him to weld continuously. Each start stop that you don't do, you save gas because you don't have so many number of pre-flows and post flows happening. That saves time, and it also saves you time on grinding at the later stage because you will have less number of high points, less number of start stops. Another tool is the hot wire. If you could, so if you look at this schematic here, you have your traditional TIG power source. It can be any power source. One end connected to the TIG torch, you have your arc happening, and the other earthing is connected to the workpiece. Now, if you were using a cold wire feeder, you would use the wire feeder. The feeder would feed the wire through the pen or the torch tip and enter into the molten pool. This is how it would work. Now, if you wanted to increase your productivity, you could preheat this wire before it enters the pool. If you preheat the wire, the melting point of the wire goes down, thereby allowing quicker deposit rates. The hot wire power source could be connected straight at this point here and to the job. So this extension, the longer the extension, the more the heating of the wire can happen. It creates a resistance through which the current flows. Now, this allows you to add wire, and wire would melt at a lower current or a lower heat input. Therefore, the average heat input on the job goes down and your deposit rate increases. By how much? Now, typically when we are talking about manual welding, we're looking at this range of welding at about 200 amperes at best during manual welding. So you're looking at cold wire fed at about 10 to 12 grams per minute. And when you do the same with hot wire, you are looking at about 20 to 25 grams per minute manually fed, which means you will have quite a significant difference in your productivity. If you look at how this works, this is just to show the torch that you normally use. The operator holds it on his hand. The other hand, he can hold a pen, and through this pen, the wire is coming through, and he could weld away. If the welder wanted to use using a cold wire feeder, using a torch with an inbuilt feeding range, the liner could be mounted on top of the torch here, as you can see. You can adjust the height and the angle at which you would want to feed the wire. These would be very good for longer straight seams, but if you had fillet joints or you had narrow grooves, this kind of a setup would be much better. If you were using a hot wire power source along with it, the hot wire would connect somewhere here, so it would have a resistance built up here. In this case, you would see it from here to the tip of the wire, and in this case, you could mount it somewhere here. So in all three cases, you could do the hot wire arrangement. As you can see here, the welder is holding the pen the same way he holds his wire at the moment. So there is no change of skill set for the welder. The way he holds the pen, the way he holds his existing wires are the same. Therefore, it makes it very easy for the welder to learn how to use this tool very quickly. Within a day or two's training, he could quickly get up and running and give you productivity increments up to 25 to 40%. Okay. You could also use the single hand torch if you wanted to, and the welder would have to get trained for it. And this would help you get the wire fed directly from one hand. This is very interesting and important when you're welding in out of position weld. So if you're welding a pipeline and you have to weld on the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock position, this gives a lot of more confidence and help to the welder as the other hand is more free. This can be mounted very comfortably onto any existing setup of your TIG welding machines on your shop floor. It could be any technology, it could be any of the imported machines, it could be the standard thyristors or Indian machines, or it could be the other older generation machines. This is an independent tool that can mount onto any existing setup and helps you get on as quick as a day. All right, so if we were to look at how much is the productivity improvement expected from a manual intervention or using these tools, you can see a small experiment on about 150 millimeter length fillet joint. When welded directly by the welder using a 1.6 mm filler wire and the present current at 138 amps, he could complete the joint at about 110 seconds. Now, we kept the same current range, we kept the same fillet size, and we introduced the cold wire feeder. The welder was feeding the wire at about 900 millimeters a minute. This would be equivalent to the wire volume of 1.6 at this rate. And the welder could complete the job in 96 seconds. This is because the wire was coming on clean to the job, and 1.2 requires a lot lesser heat to melt than 1.6. Same thing when we added a little bit of hot wire to it and added about a 40 amps current to the hot wire. You see the increase in the deposition, the wire feed rate went up to 1100 millimeters a minute. And the joint was able to be finished in 80 seconds. So a nearly 30% improvement on a 150 mm length. If you increase this length to about a meter or more of weld length, the number of start stops in the manual process increase because the filler wires have to keep changing. This is where this will be very, very useful and can increase anywhere between 20 all the way up to 40%. The manual welder can increase his productivity. I hope this part is clear to you. At this stage, we can take a quick questions if there are any. If I see what is happening, I can answer a few of them here. So there is Mr. Subramaniam has asked that stub and losses are overcome by welding the new wire onto the earlier one. You also have pen feeders. Okay. So if you see the typical tricks of the trade by welding two wires together will also give you a 2-meter length. But if you're welding a longer period, the 15-meter spool would help you weld much more continuous than the tacking of two wires together. Definitely you would save the stub and losses and reduce it from 10% maybe to 5%, but that would continuously work. Mr. Gandhi is asking the difference between cold wire and hot wire. Hot wire, the wire gets preheat before it enters the pool, weld pool. I hope that means you have already preheated wire which is entering the pool, reducing the temperature, the current required or the heat required for it to melt. Mr. Anil Singh is asking without any manual intervention. Okay, I think most of these have been answered now. Okay. What is the maximum current that we can use in hot wire GTAW? You can go up to 40, 50. The power sources are allowed to go up to 80 amps, but practically when you go in cladding, this is used much more because the speeds are higher. Typical current ranges of about 40 amps are on the higher side, I would say, would be comfortable. What would be the initial cost associated, Mr. Matre? We can take it offline and we can share that. Is there a wire feed control on the pen? Yes, you could have the pen available with a wire feed control either through foot switch or through a potentiometer on the pen itself. Okay. Won't there be pre-striking if the wire is hot? Mr. Abhinav Sampath has asked. So if you're in the logic, the hot wire only starts after your arc has started. Till then, you do not give a command for the hot wire to start. By doing that, you don't have pre-strikes. You will have a cold wire feeding in. When the arc starts, only then the hot wire will initiate itself. Will the hot wire create any safety to the welder? No, it's absolutely a safe process and no hazards to the welder. Is it practical to control the torch? See, the wire is 1.2 mm and the wire is being fed at 1.1 meters per minute. It's very comfortable for the welder to weld at that range in the manual way. When with a little bit of practice, we have seen the welders take the wire feed rate even higher. Okay, so these are good enough questions to begin with. I'm sorry if I'm not answering all of them, but the rest of them will be answered along when we look at the automated setups. Okay, what is the range? Those answers that I have not answered, I'm sure at the end of the seminar, I'll reply to you by email and we will get it forward. So if we move forward now, we can just take a quick poll in the meantime. If you have seen this cold wire feeder, would you like to try it on your shop floor? Do you think it will work or do you think it won't work? Can we have some quick yeses and nos on this? And while the poll is going on, I can quickly like to answer one or two more questions if we can. Should we have to increase feed rate for hot wire feeder? Mr. Shubham Kumbar, yes, you will have to increase because you're melting, or you could reduce your current and reduce the overall heat input. Okay. I'm sorry for people who cannot see the poll. I will try and see if there's something in the setting that I can work on. Which is safe, hot or cold wire feeding? Mr. Raman, both are equally safe. There is no problem in hot wire or cold wire feeder as far as safety is concerned. If you lifted your pen and the wire was in the air, there was no current being passed, it's absolutely safe. There is nothing which can harm the welder through that. the usual temperature during hot wire, it's not measured effectively, but I can tell you it's between 200 up to 200 degrees is what we can say the wire gets heated up to. Mr. Srihari wants to know if there is an impact on penetration. No, this is an impact on wire deposited, not on the penetration. That's if you're getting at the penetration will still depend on the current and the voltage. Mr. Chandrakant Prajapati is asking, installed existing machine, you can add the hot wire feeder arrangement on any existing machine. Yes, sir, it is possible to do so. Okay, so we'll take to the next section and I'll end the poll here. We've got about 60% people who have replied, and just to let you know, about 88% would like to try it and 12% thinks it may not work. So fair enough, we'll take it as it goes, and let's move on to automation. So what is the reason for you to automate? Now, while we were discussing this, I would really like you guys to answer this question on the poll. What are the reasons for automation? You know, there are three considerations that people have. One is people would like to automate because they want to improve the welding quality or ensure consistent repeatability in the weld joints. Second is people want to get into automation because they want to increase productivity. Third is we need to reduce the overall cost. Thereby, we want to move into automation. By virtue of increasing productivity and less of rejects, we could probably save the overall cost would go down. So that is would be the objective. So we've got about 43% replying. If you can have a little more quicker, sirs, I would request you all to participate a little more in this. This just gives an idea as to what is your focus and helps me articulate my next couple of slides or my discussion in that direction. All right, so we got about 63% in. I can stop somewhere about now. All right, we got 65% in. I'll end the polling. Most people, as expected, want to, I've shared the poll results with you all, want to automate because they want to increase productivity. Same people, more throughput. Rest of them want to also ensure consistency in welding, that's 37%, and 22% are looking forward to reducing overall cost of production. For those who are not able to see the poll or participate, I'm sorry, but I will read out each one of them for you so that you don't miss out on the information. So considering these three during your initial phase is very important. What are the types of challenges you will face when you try to get into automating TIG? One is the edge preparation, you know, whether you are grinding or you are beveling, you have equivalent root face. What is the tolerance in the root face when you do fit ups? Are there mismatches? Ovality, if there are uneven surfaces, or you have a thin sheet and a bigger diameter like you have in most of the distillery sections. You have shells of about 1 meter or 2, but the thicknesses are no more than 4-5 millimeters. There you will have a lot of ovality when you put it onto one surface. Or you want to do rectangular rounded edges tubes or hydraulic ports, so one tube, multiple ports to be done on that, such odd shapes to automate. Excuse me for a second, I'll just have a sip of water. Thank you. So the kind of repetitive jobs that you can have and consider to automate, one is the long seam. So if you had plate to plate joints, you had rolled long seam joints, these are typical long seams which can be automated. Circular seam joints, shell to shell, flange to nozzle, pipe to flange, pipe to elbow, pipe to reducers. Then you have floats, locks, objects which are repeated in nature and have circular seam. They can be automated. And you had odd shapes like the hydraulic ports are a classic example, multiple ports, circular but in one line, more than one axis to weld, or you wanted to weld rectangular tubes. So how do you go about automating? So you take some automation tools and you have some basic systems. So your basic systems could consist of column booms, rotators, positioners, manipulators. These are the basic systems. And then you have your productivity enhancing tools. That is, you will have your cold hot wire feeders, You'll have weavers, oscillators, AVC slides, and hot wire power sources. When you mix all of these together for the right application, you can have an automated GTAW solution for you. What do I mean by that? Let's look at these tools one by one first. So if we look at cold wire feeders, what we discussed earlier, what it means is you have a motor like this, which could be either a geared motor, a stepper motor, it could be a servo or a pancake motor, clubbed with a feeder. It could be a 2-roll drive, it could be a 4-roll drive, and you could have single or twin wires that you wanted to feed through these. These are the liners that carry through. Ideally, if you had a single wire, you would have seen the torch and you would have seen one wire coming in here at 45 degrees. Or if you had twin wire, you will see this kind of a configuration. You can choose twin wire depending on the deposition rate required and the space availability where you want to execute the job. Now, if you were to do a twin hot wire, right, what does that mean? You would have twin wires. The torch is fixed, for example, on a boom, and the job is moving in this direction. Say it's a circular seam and you are rotating the job. This would be the leading wire that is coming into the pool. It would just be at the outside of the weld pool. This would be the trailing wire, which would be getting inside the molten pool already. So it would be well within the center of the pool. This is how the setting would be. If you look at a typical job speed of about 220 millimeters a minute, linear welding speed, 2 wires, each being fed at 2.4 meters per minute, wire diameters of 1.2 millimeters. Mind you, this is already on automation. Current levels were at about 270 amps, hot wire currents of about 25 amps, shielding gas, argon at about 12 to 16 LPM, and tungsten was about 3.2 mm. What was the result? If you did the same job when we were doing it with only cold wire feeder, same 225 amps, 15 to 17 volts, 115 millimeters per minute travel speed. Wire feed rate was about 1.9 meters per minute, which roughly translates to about a kilo per hour. We added just a hot wire to the single wire. By adding a hot wire at about 20 amps, we could increase the travel speed from 150 to 180 millimeters a minute, getting the same bead height. And we could increase the deposition rate from 1 kg per hour to 1.15 kgs per hour. Now, what happens when we did the twin hot wire? You look at the change in current. There's hardly a change of about 20% in current. Voltage, more or less about same. You have increased your weld speeds to about 220 millimeters per minute on the job, which is a 45% increase in your productivity, the job movement. And look at the deposition rate. It's moving right from 2.1 per single wire to twin wire hot wire, moving at about 2.5 kgs per hour, making it upward of about 150% than what you were doing at the one cold wire feeder. The heat input, if you can calculate over the speed, would be equivalent or less. There would not be more heat input. These are largely used in capping or cladding solutions. So if you had capping runs after the hot pass, you could use this, and on cladding solutions. We'll see them as we go through further. Right, so what do we mean by weavers and oscillators? These are tools available for us to cover a larger area. So this is, you can see in 2G, the torch is moving upward, downward, right? And this same thing is valid also for narrow gap. So if you look at the joint here, you would want to do a narrow gap, you would have an angular weaving. Now, in both these cases, there are a few parameters that you can set as a user. You need to set the weaving speed or frequency at which you want to weave. You could set the weaving distance, what is the bead width you wanted. And very important is the dwell time. So the dwell time allows you to avoid the lack of fusion on the sides. So if you see when the torch is moving on either side, it's pausing for a second or so. That pause is nothing but the dwell time. It's settable on both left and right, and this ensures you don't have LOFs while you are welding on narrow grooves, or even when you're doing the multi-layer welds. The next and very important tool is called the AVC. A lot of you might have heard about it already. Some of you are definitely using it. It's called automatic voltage corrector. It regulates the welding voltage precisely to give repeatable procedures. Now what happens is, in typically when you have a lot of ovality as we were sharing, or you have uneven surfaces, the distance between your torch and your job would change. Now you see here, while you go through it, it's changing the distance. Now what happens is we measure the voltage very closely. Now those who know what happens when you move a torch closer to the job, your voltage reduces. And when you take the torch away from the job or the distance increases, your voltage increases. We capture this feedback, take it into a fast loop system, and on sensitivity index, we control the motor of the slide. This helps you trace any profile that you want with the same, maintaining the same arc gap, which means you would no longer have to worry about your tungstens getting dashed in because the ovality is too high, and you would not have to worry about. So if you see, if this moved on without the AVC, somewhere here, sorry, somewhere along the lines here, you would have the tungsten make a very big gap and it would burn through. And here you would have had the tungsten hit the job and have a damage or a repair called. ABC avoids all this and allows you to do automation intake much easier. Another important factor is it also allows you to compensate for electrode wear. This is very important when you're doing cladding solutions, when your arcing is on for more than 8-10 hours. At that time, if your electrode has worn out, the arc gap will change, the voltage will increase. This will automatically bring your torch closer to the job, thereby maintaining the same voltage that you wanted. Now, how does an automatic TIG head look like, right? How much does this automatic TIG head look like? So if you had your TIG torch here, you could have this axis as your AVC, this axis as your weaving, and this is your cold or hot wire feeder. You could plug these three together and you would have a weld head that could be mounted ready on any solution. So this is an A-frame on which you could have mounted it. You could mount the same thing onto a column boom or any other solutions. Now, this is when your job is over here and rotating on a 1G position welds. This is true. If you're welding in 2G, your torch would have been welded pointing on this side. This axis would become weaving axis. This axis would have become your AVC axis, right? So it would allow you to adjust the gap from the job, and this would allow you to weave. So depending on the position of joint, you can change the axis in your program to change the AVC and weaving roles that we wanted to play. Very important considerations when you look at GTAW, automated GTAW welding is, what is the size of your part that you want to weld? What are the repeatability of the job? What are the chances of, inconsistency in your edge preparation or your fit ups? Have you done time motion study? That means what is important to know is what is taking more time, welding or handling the material? This is very critical when you do any automation. This is something that you should understand, and then take your next decisive step, because it will help you understand which next step to take, whether to go in for a robotic solution, whether to go in for a SPM based solution with single station or multi-station. We'll see a couple of examples here. So we have done, I've put in a couple of slides for you for straight tube butt welding lines for the boiler panel tubes. Similarly, we have done titanium tube to tube welding systems, which are two tubes together. Big shout out to the team from Godrej, which is already present on the chat. I know we've done this for them. And you have butt welders or spooling operations where you can do pipe to flanges, pipe to elbows, reducers. You can do locks, floats, welding SPMs. Now, as the parts are smaller, loading and unloading times can be longer. So here we'll see something that can help you save time. Then you have pipe to flange solutions, valve solutions, you have long seamers, and then we'll show you how this goes on to a column boom for a auto TIG head or an A-frame in general. So this is what a straight tube butt welder looks like. The configuration is, this is the table which has two chucks. Each chuck has this pipe coming through and clamped. So the sequence of operation would be, this pipe comes through here, there's a stopper, it would stop in the center, the pipe. After the pipe has butted against this cylinder, the clamp, pneumatic clamp would clamp the tube in position. The stopper would go back. You would put the second tube in place and then clamp the second chuck as well. Now you have the root gap that you wanted. Both the pipes or tubes rather are held firmly in place. These both are synchronized together as a rotational axis. So the tube acts as one while it rotates. This axis, as you would have guessed, would be the AVC axis. This would be your weaving axis and the cold wire feeder. Here, let's see how this looks in actual welding. So you see a touch retract happening here, wherein the torch is approaching the job. When it touches, the beauty of AVC is the feedback. So when it touches the job, it tells you that it has reached the destination. It goes up by a fixed distance that you want to set and then starts the arcing. This will repeat itself every single time. You can have the start point at 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, depending on the voltage you wanted. You can clearly see that the torch is weaving. You can see that the wire is being fed directly into the pool and that the job is rotating in this direction. And let me see if I can quickly take you forward. Now, as you can see here more clear, when you come 360 degrees are about to get over, you will have a slight overlap which you can program up to 5 degrees, 10 degrees, depending on your job. At the end of overlap, you are seeing now a downslope happen onto the job. So you can see slowly the current going down and the wire has retracted, thereby not having any inclusion onto the sticking of the wire onto the pool itself. Now this is a spooling automation or a butt welding system. This is very useful when you have the larger spools, flanges to pipes, pipes to elbows, elbows to reducers, and the entire spooling system. This is one of the beads you can see here, welded, one of the passes with the wire, with weaving, beautiful bead here. You could see a series of maybe about 10 to 15 of these butt welders on the shop floor here. You have, these are the kind of spoolings that we were talking about. So you could do pipe to flange to pipe, these butt joints, which are heavy wall thick, and it could help you do them. It could help you do the elbows, the reducers. How does this work? I have a quick video to show you that. Now this, if you here see, this is the 3-jaw chuck, which will hold the job for you, the pipe or the elbow. And then you have the power sources, the idlers here to, if you have a longer joint, you can rest the job onto it. The chiller to keep the torch cool. Now here is where the torch is working. The operator is just looking at the job being welded. This is the kind of weld joint you can expect, or the overlay you can expect on this. It has pre-programmed, so once you put in the diameter of the pipe, it will maintain a linear speed. Once the 360 degree is over, it would move on to the next one, weld the next run, weld the next run, next run. It will keep doing it on its own with minimum intervention by the operator. When you're doing multi-pass, when the second pass comes, because of the AVC, it will again maintain the same hard gap and maintain the voltage that you want. Now let's see a pipe to flange example. Now these are two different SPMs. Now here you see one that we have raised the entire tailstock to a 45-degree angle. What does that help you achieve? It helps you achieve welding in 1G position. Again, that solves a lot of your problems of mismatches. Now, if you have welded this in a 1G position and the torch was at 45 degrees, any mismatch or any gap which was inconsistent between the pipe and the flange would reflect in 2 dimensions and X and Y axis both. When I'm moving it 45 degrees, any mismatch is in Z axis only, and my AVC can take care of that particular mismatch by arranging or reaching closer to the joint. Same thing here, you could do it's a valve being done. You can see the flange to pipe, pipe to the body, wall body to pipe again, and then to the flange. 2 settings, and you can do 4 joints on it. These 2 are butt welds and these 2 are fillet joints. How does the end product look like? Now this is where you can see you're welding the 3 pipe to flange joint here, already pre-welded for you. You can see the result here. What if you had a narrow gap, like we saw the valve, it has a fitting coming out of it, the Y coming out of it doesn't allow you a lot of space. So we can have special torches and nozzles for reaching to such places. Again, AVC and all help achieve that weld joint, which seems difficult to automate, is possible with these tools to do that very comfortably. Let's look at smaller stations. If you had a smaller product which had smaller weld time, but loading and unloading time was higher, you could do that by loading the job on one station here. The operator loads it. He gives a 2-hand acknowledgement onto the job, which allows the job to be clamped. Once it's clamped, it rotates onto the other side saying, I'm ready to be welded. While the torch goes down, touches, retracts, and starts its welding, the operator can remove the pre-welded job, put in the second job in place, and set it up for welding. Here you can see a lock being welded, and this welding speeds are at about 800 millimeters a minute. Sheet thicknesses would be in the tune of 1.2 millimeters. Now, by doing a pipeline here, one being welded, one being loaded, we are allowing the operator to be more free and to do jobs at an easier rate, and the productivity, your equipment that you have spent on is not being kept idle. It's always occupied. This is a typical long seamer. So if you were to do plate to plate or you were to do a shell type joint, this is the kind of long seamer you would have. This axis, as you would have guessed, is the main gantry on which the welding head will move from left to right or right to left. On top of this is the torch mounted. You have one axis here for weaving. This axis becomes AVC, and the cold wire feeder is being fed through this. What's interesting in the long seamers are the kind of fitments you have to hold the pipes or the places or the plates together, because it will attract a lot of stresses of welding. It will either push the job away or pull it closer to each other. To avoid those shrinkages, you have to have the right set of clamps to hold it. You see here, this is a pneumatic muscle. So there are fingers all across the length of 50 millimeters each. So if you had 6 meter long, you would be seeing about 120 such fingers next to each other. When the pneumatic swells, when you fill in the air, it puts pressure onto the clamp and the fingers hold on to the job. At the force, every 50 millimeters, you are holding it tight enough so that it doesn't move. And then these are all, of course, copper based, so that you have the heat removal. You can have a purging base here. You could have a prefixed groove that you would want to fill the geometry of the the penetration. All that could be done on this face here. This whole length is being welded straight on. Again, the same three tools: AVC, weaving, cold wire feeder. It could be hot wire as well, depending on your job. Now, if you had an existing column boom setup, so this is a column boom setup, you have a trolley here, you have a column, a boom. On top of the boom face, you could have mounted a TIG welding head, like we've shown you here. This is an headstock, tailstock. So if you had a spider-based system, you could even have these simple rotators on the base instead of an headstock, tailstock, which could rotate the job. The head does the same thing, welds in 1G position, makes the life easier for the welder. As you can see, this is a huge shell. This is about 3.2 to 4 meters in diameter, being rotated. This is with hot wire and the GTAW power source being fed directly. Now, the new advantages of doing this automation is that the welder and the helper now become one. The welder can has the convenience. He doesn't have to handle a cockpit of multiple stations. He's handling one tab, one remote to handle his wire feed rate during welding, his AVC controls, his weaving length, and his rotational cycles, all on one panel in front of him. Makes life much more easier for the welder. We can add a camera, a weld camera to this, which can allow the welder to see the weld joint. And also during welding, he can see the pool, sitting in the convenience of an AC cabin or down by the bench, not necessarily in front of the. This takes away the fatigue from the welder and allows him to do repeated jobs at a higher speed. The same long seamer, you could have mounted the TIG head onto an A-frame you see here. So if you wanted to do a pipe and you had a flange and then you had a reducer or you had another connection or a socket, something you wanted to weld, you could move the head very comfortably. You could weld long seams on this. So you had your shell rolled, put it on the idler, set the seam right, and then you can move the torch from one end to the other while welding the long seam. You could have weaving in this axis, as you can see, and you would have AVC in this axis to the long seam. And to do the sug seam, you would have weaving in this axis, and you would have the AVC here. This you can see an 300 nominal bore pipe with a 8 mm thickness being welded in 2 passes, root with the filler wire, and then the capping. Ideally, in manual, it would have taken 3 passes. Moving on to cladding stations, or as we can say, we have 4 kind of cladding stations that are available for cladding overlay. You have the vertical cladding station, horizontal, universal, compact cladding stations, and you can have RTJ groove cladding stations also. This is a vertical one. You can put the job here, the job rotates, the torch goes in, welds at every end. Again, AVC, weaving, cold wire, hot wire fed, single or twin wire. This is the beautiful machine called the Universal Weld Cladding Station. As you can see, this is the positioner or the rotator in zero position when it's working as a vertical station. If you wanted to do a horizontal job, you could raise the positioner up by this hydraulic arm. It would become at 90 degrees. You could load the joint. This would swell down here and go straight inside the job and do the job. Welding, either a butt weld, ID cladding, or anything could have been done by that head. Again, same all the three mechanisms. Beauty of these systems are they can interchange the AVC and the weaving systems as they go along through the program itself. Then we have a huge horizontal cladding station here. It could be 3 meters, 6 meters, 12 meters. You can have single head, twin head, quad head. All are possible depending on the job you want to do. Let's look at a vertical cladding station. You can do jobs like the elbows. You can see here very small grooves. So 2-inch ID, 42 mm, you could want to do clad, you could do that. You wanted to do your flange face and the bores, you could do that. You want to do your T-joints, you can do that. These are all overlaid with different materials, Inconel, Monel, stainless steel on the base material that you wanted to clad it with. Similarly, if you wanted to look at ID cladding, these stations are single and twin pipe. These are some of the cladded pipes already. As you can see here, this has already been clad and beautiful, singular layers, same height, very good to use at the end of it and easy to analyze. Now, if you see this is a multi-head station, you can see one torch being active here. You can see a dark patch, then you can see the second head. The beauty of these systems is imagine you want to weld a 12-meter long pipe. You want to do an ID cladding on a 12-meter long pipe. If you did it with a single head, you would have started from one end and have welded 12 meters long continuously. Disproportionate heat input in all both ends, or you would have to start stop at different lengths. You put it a twin head, that means you weld from 0 to 6 meters on the first head, 6 to 12 meters on the second head. You are having a more balanced heat input on both the sides, and you can complete the job in 6 meters, what you would have taken ideally 12 meters to do. Now we add quad head to it. That means you have 4 heads on the same station. One pipe, 12-meter long, could be welded in 3-meter segments. By the time you finish welding 3 meters, ideally, you would have welded a 12-meter long pipe. That's the kind of productivity enhancement you can have over there. We've covered a fair bit of automation where we have seen increase of productivity up to 100%. Upskilling of the welder, where the welder now becomes the operator. And you can have the time motion study in place to decide which of these would be more useful for you. It could have evaluated your welding time versus handling time. If you do that, you would know again whether you need multi-station or single station is better for you. And did we say overlay? Because overlay is a topic in itself. I know I've covered very little in it. So while I take more Q&As on this, can I launch one quick poll to know whether you guys would like to have another session on cladding itself? I'll just take a quick Q&A. Is automation systems 4.0 compatible? Yes, well data monitoring and documentation happens, Mr. Jinesh, that is true. You can take it. Seam tracking is possible on the long seam machines, Ashok Kumarji, yes, it is possible. There are mechanical seam trackers and there are visual seam trackers. Mr. Darshan wants to know what is the minimum size we can weld overlay on an elbow. We have done up to 3 inches of an elbow. I have a video for that. I can share with you later on the same. Minimum ID pipe can be done in from inside. If you were to do a very small pipe up to say below 5 inches, I would recommend doing them on a vertical cladding station or a universal. If you wanted to do anywhere above 5 inches and the lengths are up to 6 or 12 meters, you could do it on a horizontal one. Mr. Shyam Krishnan wants to know what is the edge preparation on STBW. STBW lines typically take about 30-degree or 60-degree included angle. It depends again on your WPS and it can do that. How much is the maximum cladding thickness? So there is no cladding thickness maximum. It depends on the chemistry you want to achieve. Otherwise, you could as good as use this system to build a 3D pipe. And we've done that in one of the exhibitions where we continuously kept cladding on the vertical station and we have a beautiful pipe which is equal in wall thickness all across built. So cladding thickness depends on the chemistry you want on your base material to be achieved. What is the iron dilution and things like that? We'll decide that. Could you share a video showing inside overlay of an equal tree, equal tape? Binoy ji, I will share it with you offline, definitely. We will do that. Okay. Now, if I can, there are about 63 open questions here. I have answered few of them. If there are any others that I can quickly take. What is the minimum? Suyog Jhavar wants to know what is the minimum dia wire that can be fed in an auto wire feeder. It's up to you. We can feed as small as 0.4 mm also if you want. It's a matter of making the rollers. But the wire consistency should be available, and also the longer the wire feeding you take, the thinner the wire, the more difficult it will get. Typical available ranges are 0.8, 1 and 1.2, 1.6. They are very easily available for you to use. Okay. Now I can, since we've already taken a fair bit of time, I have still got to get you guys. Wow, I've got about 73% people would love to know more about cladding overlay. We'll organize one session for you guys, and those who have answered, I'll share the link with you when it happens, and definitely we'll do that. If you wanted, has this met your need for speed, if I was to so ask? Or do you would like to have much more speed, right? So if you wanted to do much more speed, we have a process for you, which is the latest technology. It's called accelerated TIG. We call it SWOT. It's based on keyhole technology. I know I have taken up the time, but I request you guys to stick around for another 10 minutes. I promise you it will be worth your time. Now, if you look at the SWOT, it's used for automated welding only, extremely efficient process. You need no edge preparation. It can be done with or without filler wire. It's a square butt welding, very low heat input, very low distortion. What do I mean by that, and how does this work? It works by, it's a variant of keyhole technology. What it means is that it punctures through the entire material in one go, and it carries through the molten pool all across. I'll show you how. It works because we concentrate the arc, we make it much more concentric, constricted, more focused on a smaller area, and it gives you much deeper penetration. If you look at the heat zone of a normal GTAW or a pulse stick and that of a SWOT, you can see much smaller, much more focused arc. How much focus? The arc force level for the same levels of current and voltage, right? So if you were doing a pulsed take DC take between 100 and 130 amps, peak current, base current at 100, net effective current at about 110, 115 amps, you would have had 9.8 volts. The arc force available to you here is about 3.2 millinewton. The weld bead width would be 2.47 millimeters, and width would have been about 7.61 millimeters. When we did the same thing with SWOT, the arc force, given the same current voltage, arc force shoots up right from 3.2 to 9.2. It's almost 3 times as powerful than a normal TIG force, right? But it's still a TIG process. Look at it. The depth of penetration goes up by 20%, width reduces by 10%. You have a very much focused arc, and it allows you to weld at one go. This is the kind of cross section you can expect. We'll see much more when we move forward. Just to give you a schematic idea, 2 plates, butt joint put together. When you start welding with the SWOT process, what happens is that the arc becomes very concentrated. Because of the concentrated arc, it creates a keyhole throughout the thickness. The plasma and the gases are released from the bottom. And when you move in the direction at a high speed, the pool is being continuously held on its own. You don't need a backing layer at the base. It works without it. And it forms a typical wine glass profile for you. No edge preparation was required to do this. So can I show you quick videos? So if you can see here, this is a typical 8 millimeter thick stainless steel plate. You can see no edge preparations done. Simply put on top of the torch is mounted on a simple column boom. We'll get the boom to move at about 400 millimeters a minute. On the other end, if you see this video here, what is happening on the other side. You can see the efflux plasma exiting. So you see all the gases coming out. The consistency of this plasma tells you that there's a very even penetration happening all across. And when you go into downslope, this is what happens. You're reducing current, your plasma is going off, your keyhole is shutting, and then you stop. If you see here, this 300 millimeter long plate took less than a minute to finish the welding, right? We welded at close to about 400 millimeters a minute. And this is the kind of weld joint you would get. No edge preparation, no undercuts, beautiful joint, no wire fed on it either. The applications can be wide. It can be used for long seam, circular seam, tube mills. What kind of materials can you weld with this? Stainless steel, definitely up to 10 millimeters. You can do square, but no edge preparation required. Duplex stainless steel, you could do up to 10 millimeters. Titanium, we have done up to 12. Nickel alloys up to 10. Stellite, we have tried stellite alloys up to 7 mm. We can do higher. We have much more currents available, but we didn't have the material at higher thicknesses. Carbon steel, we don't recommend this process heavily for carbon steel or for mild steel, simply because the batch to batch variation is pretty high in terms of the content, and that leads to inconsistency in carbon steel. Whereas in stainless steel and any sluggish material, this process works beautifully. As you can see, this plate here welded at about 400 amps, speeds are about 650 millimeters a minute. What are we talking about? We did some trials on Hestalloy, C276 material, which is a nickel-based alloy. Thickness was about 6.5 millimeters. Speeds of welding 550 millimeters per minute. Stainless steel, we've tried right from 2.72 up to 8 to 10 millimeters. As you can see, the speeds go from as high as 815 millimeters a minute on the tube mill to about 400 millimeters a minute on plates and tube mills for 8 mm thick stainless steel 304L. We also did try alloys like Veldox, and we were able to achieve beautiful welds at about 400 millimeters a minute, no edge preparation required. Again, there was a question asked in the pre-asked questions. One of them was what happens if you use higher amount of hydrogen. See, there are typical allowances. More hydrogens means more heat input, but it also means it's combustible gas. It can be explosive. It's not recommended to use over 8 to 10%. Your mix should be between that. And there were other questions which I'll answer a little later. If you can see the case study on tube mill applications, typically tube mills use plasma plus stick combination. So they have TPT or TP as a combination. The plasma makes the keyhole, the tick fills it up. You have a filler wire addition required to meet the capping needs. 8.5 mm thick 12-inch dia pipes are being formed at about 175 millimeters a minute on the tube mill with a plasma plus stick combination. When we use SWOT, we were able to use a single tick torch, single process, no additional filler wire, and we got speeds up to 300 millimeters per minute on an 8.5 mm thick tube. This is that pipe here. Now, if you look at the beads here, these are the kind of bead weld penetration consistency you can get. This we did back to back. About 5 tons of material was produced. Each one of them passed the RTR needs, the flaring needs, the bends, whatever other tests, all are compliant. This is a 5 mm thick pipe, about 5 inches, 530 millimeters per minute on the mill. This is the kind of cross profile you can get. On the tube mills, there's a word of caution. They have something called near weld thickness, which needs to be equivalent to or above a particular level. But in tube mills, the tolerance allowed is about 12% on the thickness. So they typically use a lower thickness material. So filler wire is suggested or recommended when you have higher thicknesses to take care of your near weld thickness. Rest, otherwise, from the joint strength, there is no problem. If you were looking at long seams, and we welded about 1 meter plate, 8 mm thick for SS304. If you were to do a manual GTAW process, that is, the operator was to do the edge preparation first on both sides, make the V grooves, get the two plates together, tack weld them, then do the root weld, followed by the hot pass, and then 2 layers of capping pass, fill up and capping. This would have taken about, normal manual speeds are about 55 millimeters a minute. This would be 4 meters of weld because there will be 4 passes. You are looking at something like 72 minutes of weld time per meter. And that total time means 102 minutes to complete the job with edge preparation and welding. Same if you were to do in an automated TIG process with cold wire at about 100 millimeters a minute, you would reduce the number of passes from 4 to 2 because you would use weaving and you would use a multipass with a cold wire feeder. You could do it in 2 passes with an average speed of about 100 millimeters a minute. You could do this in 20 minutes. Edge preparation would have still taken 30 minutes. So this would have been about an hour's job to do 1 meter long weld on an automated GTAW. In SWAT, with a single pass at a speed of about 300 millimeters a minute, no edge preparation required, maybe about 2-3-5 minutes of setup time, 3.33 minutes of weld time, you can complete the same job in 5 minutes. You can look at the jump in productivity you can expect, right? This is nickel alloy C276, 6 millimeter thick, 6 meter long plates. This is the pre-tacked version where it was not welded. This was put onto a long seamer with hydraulic clamping station. And then this was welded at speeds of about 400 millimeters a minute. They welded the 6 meter long joint, 6 meter long joint, 6 mm thick in under 15 minutes. I hope I'm stressing this point enough. They welded 6 meter long joint, 6 mm thick in a single pass under 15 minutes. You can see the penetration on the other side, and this is where you had the top layer. If you wanted to cap it, you could have one more layer on top to do a capping because this will give you just a flush or near flush finish. If you wanted to add one more layer with filler wire, it would still have taken you much lesser time to do the job. As it's a variant of GTAW, it falls under ASME Section 9. All tests have been conducted to prove this process in with stainless steel and with titanium and with stellite alloys we have seen, and nickel alloys, and we have seen this pass through with flying colors on the tensile test, root bend, face bend, all these tests which are compared to Section 9. I must say, yet to do are the impact tests at minus 130. Impact tests are yet to be done. However, the initial findings on the hardness and other things are all good, and there is no problem there. I'll just summarize the session because GTAW could be made faster. We saw from manual to semi-automatic, you could increase speeds by using cold and hot wire feeders from 30 to 50%. Automated GTAW, you could cover weaving, ABC, cold hot wire feeders and take your speeds from 150 millimeters to 400 millimeters a minute. And then you could have gone into SWAT, which is accelerated TIG, and have multi-process benefits, right? I would thank you all for your time and would open the session for any questions you had. If we can look at the Q&A section, there are about 92 questions. Somebody is asking whether this is, are you talking of KTIG? This is SWAT, is also a keyhole technology, and KTIG is also a keyhole technology, yes. Somebody is using, can we use ABC in MIG-MAG? MIG-MAG welding, unfortunately, it's a constant voltage process, so you would have constant voltage by default, so ABC will not work there. Although there are variants available, I'm sure with Gulco there is one that I have seen, which works for MIG as well. Okay, we can give it a try there. And if you have any further questions, you can ask me. I will reply to it later. What is the maximum height distance that can be managed in ABC? You can manage up to 25-30 millimeters. That should not be a problem. It's only limited by your stroke of the slide, which can be increased. Okay, can I see? How arc concentrated in SWAT process? As I shared, by concentrated the arc with the help of programming and also by keeping the tungsten cooler. Ashok Kumar sir is asking, what is the tungsten dia for SWAT TIG? How to maintain the shape? How frequently to replace the electrode? SWOT, when we were doing on the tube mills, we didn't replace the tungsten for the whole shift. So that gives you an idea. There is a particular tungsten we will recommend for you to use, which will have a better life. And the shape of the angle we will discuss, and I can share that with you later. Somebody is requesting how about pipe to pipe butt welds for SWOT? Yes, that is possible. We can look at that as well. Yes, it is a completely different power source in SWOT. It's a TIG power source, and it has certain things within the power source which allows us to construct the arc. I will share a video of this if possible at the end of it and email it to you guys. All right. Tube to tube sheet, this will not be useful, sir. For tube to tube sheet, you will have to use a standard tube to tube sheet TTS head. That would be an orbital head that would help. All right. ID overlay, any restrictions Mr. Madhavan would like to know? Not really. We can't do below 2 inches. So minimum 42 millimeters diameter we can go in pre-welded. Post-welded, that will be about 32 millimeters. AVC used in SWOT, it can be used, may not be used, both are okay. Okay. If a job is having uneven groove, back chip grinding, AVC is maintained equal depth. Yes. So I thank you a lot for joining in. Mr. Ashok, if you could unmute yourself and then we can take it further. Any questions which have not been answered, we will take it forward and share with you on the same. Okay, Mr. Malge?
Yeah. It's a nice lecture given by Mr. Nimesh Rai. And basically, it touched upon the productivity improvement in GTAW with different processes, improvement, etc. Accelerated take, continuous wire feeding, hot wire method. A lot of applications were also discussed. On behalf of IIW Mumbai branch, I thank Mr. Nimesh Shunai for giving this interesting talk on productivity improvement in GTAW. I also thank IIW headquarters for their coordination. Thank you all participants for your involvement in the making program more effective. Thanks a lot. And any questions beyond this can be directly spoken to the speaker and he will try to answer the questions. Thanks again. Thank you, Nimesh.
Thank you very much, everybody, for participating. And if there are any unanswered questions, I'll try and answer them shortly by email. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
We'll end the session here.